just be salivating for it. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today, and for this video we're going to be doing a series of series update. Alright, before we get to anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments what was the last series that you finished. So if you're new here, my series of series is a series of videos in which I am basically keeping up with the book series that I am currently reading. So I have book series that I want to read soon, I have book series that I'm currently in the middle of, book series that I finished, and also the ones that I've decided not to continue with. In 2023, I did my best to stay on top of series and finish as many of them as I could. So I had all 3 videos last year and I had a lot of updates for them. This year, I'm just gonna do a quick wrap up, a quick update, because unfortunately, I have not been doing nearly as well. So I guess let's start out by talking about the series that I've actually finished since November of 2023. 2 that I knew when I filmed that prior video were going to be completed there soon were the Brightfall series by Ashley Herring-Blake and the Legends in Latte series by Travis Baldree. And thankfully, those did happen. I did complete each of them. Unless a new book is released in either of those series, which I don't currently think will be happening, then I'm completely done. Next was the Letters of Enchantment series by Rebecca Ross. I fell in love with Divine Rivals at the end of 2023 like everybody else, and so when the book came out at the start of this year, I absolutely had to go get my hands on it, and I absolutely read it as fast as I could. I also managed to finish out the Love and Other Disasters series by Anita Kelly. I actually ended up receiving an arc of the last 2 books in this series, so that was great. Both of those added to my NetGalley score. 2 birds, 1 stone. One romance series that I fell down and finished quite quickly was the Wright Brothers by Christina C. Jones. I really enjoyed all 3 of them, so it wasn't really surprising that I blasted through that series fairly quickly. And then another one that I stayed on top of thanks to NetGalley was the Lake Witch trilogy by Stephen Graham Jones. The final book was Angel of Indian Lake. Unfortunately, I didn't love how the series ended, but I did finish the series out. One that I surprisingly started and finished this year was the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden. And I think part of that is probably because the events within the book continue so quickly. So the whole series was quite bingeable. I mean, when you picked it up, it just felt like you fell right back into the world. And I do have to say that 𝗖cie, the main character of the series, is still probably one of my favorite characters of the year so far. Another series that I binged through really fast. Honestly, I kind of ignored other books that I probably should have been reading in favor of this series, was The Big Bad Wolf by 𝗖cie když. Supernatural queer romantic suspense. I ate those books up. Oh my god, they were so good. Luckily, I have yet to read the continuation in the same universe, but with a different series and a different couple. I haven't gotten there yet. I think technically only the first book is out so far, and that's probably a good thing, because otherwise I'd probably start to obsess over the sequel and just be salivating for it. One series that was at the top of my list to finish out this year was the Between Earth and Sky by Rebecca Roanhorse. So of course I picked up Mirrored Heavens really quickly, and I'm so glad the series ended on a positive note. I really enjoyed this one, thought it rounded out very well, and I'm really excited for whatever Roanhorse comes out with next. Next one is a series that I actually stayed on top of. I read the next installments in the trilogy like each month, which is pretty rare for me to do, was The Extraordinaries by T.J. Klune. I really shouldn't be surprised about that, because it's T.J. Klune, one of my favorite authors. This series is so much fun. Such strong family feels, ridiculous comedy. I mean, it's very YA, it is very superhero focused, but I freaking loved it. One that I really went back and forth on finishing was A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, and I'm saying this is finished for right now just because I don't think the author has another book planned in this universe. They always could come out with more, honestly, so. Though I absolutely adored A Dowry of Blood, I heard a lot of mixed things on the next book, An Education of Malice. These aren't really direct sequels. As I said, they're more just set in the same universe, and there is an appearance of a character from Dowry in Education. But I think seeing so many negative and mid reviews kind of lowered my expectations, so when I went into it, I was pleasantly surprised by how much I ended up enjoying it. Fortunately, I cannot say the same for the Legacy of 𝗖cie series by Tomi Adeyemi. I freaking loved the first book in that series. Kind of rode that high with the second book, but the third book, It was quite a letdown, if I am being honest, and chances are I will be unhauling that series here soon. I'm so sad to say 𝗖cie was another one finished off my list. And while we're here, let's go ahead and talk about the series that I ended up deciding not to finish in the last year. First up being the Tita Rosie's Kitchen Mysteries by 𝗖cieः𝘁. I'm not a cozy girl. That's really become abundantly clear to me this year. I kept trying with these books because they were so easy, they were really bingeable, and they worked great whenever I was participating in series-based readathons. But when each book kept getting a lower rating, and even people who really enjoyed the series were telling me not to read the last book, I decided, you know what? I'm gonna trust their judgment. I'm just gonna give up. Yeah, I'm not gonna try with that last one. Very similar vein was the Baker Street Mysteries by Valerie Burns. I read the first book in the series for Winterween and immediately knew I would not be reading anymore. Another cozy mystery, another one based around food with a main character that I did not particularly like and a million side characters who you can't differentiate. Speaking of main characters that I didn't like, I also decided not to continue with Emily Wilde's universe. That one's by Heather Fawcett, I believe. I tried the first book and absolutely detested the main love interest. I actually enjoyed Emily. If Wendell What's-His-Face was not involved in the book, I might have continued reading and actually enjoyed this, but oh my god, he just turned me off so fast. So that one got put down and will not be picked back up. One that was a bit of a letdown, unfortunately, was Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. While I did like the first book, I didn't absolutely fall in love with it and feel the need to read the sequel. In fact, I actually liked how the first book ended and kind of tied out the Little Mermaid retelling aspect that the story was doing. Because the book ended in that way, it made it even more obvious to me that I didn't really want to read the next ones. I read the first book, it was good. Not gonna continue the series though. Oh, and then we are back to cozy mysteries with the Harlem Renaissance Mystery Series by 𝗖cieः𝘁. Unfortunately, on this one, another cozy mystery, but this one was set in 1920s Harlem, which I thought was a really cool setup. Didn't really care about the main character, and then the setup of the mystery just seemed really obvious and a little outlandish to me, so I ended up putting that one down. Again, just cozies and I, it's become abundantly clear we don't get along. On a very different note though, was the Divine Traitor series by Camilla Cole. The setup of this story was interesting to me because it is based around Jamaican folklore, which I did think was really interesting, but I didn't particularly love the characters. The plot itself felt very obvious as to how things were going to go, and the dragons were not enough to save this for me, so no, not gonna be going back for the second book. While they weren't dragons, another book that did have giant ships that let me down was the Ancillary Justice series by Ann Leckie. I heard a lot about this sci-fi series, and while aspects of the writing I thought were really cool, I just had such a hard time with the plot and I didn't really care about the characters. The first book, it did nothing for me, meaning I don't want to read 3 more books in this series. 3 more? No, it's just 2 more. I didn't want to read 2 more books in the series. Kind of on a similar vein was The Radiant Emperor by Shelley Parker Chan. I had really been looking forward to trying this book out again. I had DNF'd the first book in the series twice previously, but I always felt it was because of the circumstances surrounding my reading the book, not the book itself. Then I finished the book, and I don't think it was worth going back to. I don't really think this book should be billed as a fantasy. I think this book should be billed as a historical, and it is very based in the politics of war, which is something I just don't particularly love to read about. While I did think the themes around gender in both the main characters were very cool, I just wasn't super invested in either of their storylines, so I don't think I'm gonna return for the sequel. One that I finally decided to just give up on is the Practical Magic series. I picked up magic lessons like, I think in September of 2023, attempting to continue. Unfortunately, magic lessons just, again, very, very historical, was setting up a romance that I knew I was supposed to hate, but because I knew I was supposed to hate it, I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to watch it play out. The character that we were following here didn't really interest me, and so I've officially just given up. I'm gonna stop trying. Lastly was Nemesis by April Daniels. I read the first book in this series, Dreadnought, and I did really enjoy it. There is a second book in the series that I keep considering trying out, but that book came out in I think like 2018, and the third book that's been already announced, yeah, it's been nowhere to be seen since then. Continuing on with the series will just kind of end in heartbreak. Maybe if the next book in the series finally gets announced, we start to see an actual release date of it, I'll move it from DNF back to my ongoings. But for right now, I've kind of lost interest and kind of lost faith. So that's it for the series that, you know, I'm done with. But as for the series that are currently ongoing, I'm currently working on. First is a manga series, Soul Eater by 𝗖cieých𝘁𝘁, which I am nearly finished with. I am on to volume 21 out of 25. This was a long series to start, but I'm nearly there. I'm so close. Next up, I have the Knitting in the City series, which is kind of a funky one. The series is by Penny Reed. I tried the first book and I DNF'd it. I read the second book and I actually did enjoy it. And there's enough interest in the other women in this knitting circle who will be the main characters that I am still considering continuing. It's just lower on the priority list right now because unfortunately I'm still nervous after how the first book went. But I love the Winston Brothers series by the same author, and I'm so interested in some of her other stuff that's been coming out since then. And I still hear a lot of positive things about the Knitting in the City series. I'm gonna try it. Like I said, it's a little bit lower on the priority list. Plus it's a romance book series, so it's not like I have to keep reading them in order to remember what was going on in the universe. One that I'm a little bit more concerned about is the second in the gosh, I'm gonna have to remember how to say this. The Tithonai Chronicles by Foz Meadows. Wow. I read the first book and absolutely enjoyed it. It's a queer romantasy that it does have a strong political mystery going on. And so I do want to try out the second book, but I'm a little hesitant mostly because I know how thick these books are. I did actually immediately go buy the second after reading the first, but unfortunately I never got the time to jump right into the second. I really just need to like reinvigorate my excitement to continue into it. But y'all know me, and chunky books are intimidating. I need to get over it so that I can finish out this series and also get more of these characters. I know it follows the same couple, but I think there's another character that we're introduced to as well. I don't know what's going on there. I don't really want to. I just want to fall in love and see more of these two being adorable. Another one that is also quite long and also the last in the series is 𝗖cie by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This would close out the Illuminae files. I did really enjoy the first two books in the series, though I did feel as though the second book was really, really similar to the first. And I'm very nervous that the third book might do the same thing, which is why I think it's kind of a good thing I didn't immediately jump into this one. But I will eventually be continuing it, probably listening to the audio because these audiobooks are so well produced. But I do also want to take the time to go look at the physical copy because they're told in a multimedia format. It's a whole deal to read these books, but I'm going to read it eventually. Another one I was really hoping to jump into right after reading the first was The Guncle Abroad by Stephen Rowley. I loved The Guncle, the first one. It was so stinking cute. Again, with the family feels, it was so adorable. I requested the audiobook for the second from my library. I got put on a really long hold. By the time I finally did get the book, I didn't have time to read it. I was so bogged down by video plans and things. So unfortunately, this one kind of fell by the wayside, but I do still want to pick it up. I've heard positive things about it as well. It'll happen eventually. One that is very much reliant on whether or not I can get my hands on a copy of these books is the Paranormal Hunter series by Mila Nix. I read the first book, Black Witch Magic, as a part of my Witchy 5x5. I do know it follows the same couple as they continue investigating paranormal mysteries, which does sound like it's going to be a lot of fun. This series is the first one that has really made me consider trying to get Kindle Unlimited because they're all available on there and maybe I could just like binge right through them. I don't want to give my money to Amazon if I can help it. Yeah, this one might hang out on here while I try and hunt down the books for a good deal. One I'm actively mad at myself for not having continued yet is the Founders Trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett. I read the first book, Foundryside, finally, and really enjoyed it. I thought the magic system in this world was really unique, and by the end of the book, I was starting to get more invested into our cast of characters. I loved the heist setup. I'm so interested to see like the ramifications of everything in this first book on the world. I can't wait to continue. I just need the time. I need the availability. I also need to get the second book, hopefully at the start of next year. Okay, these next few are because of my Buns and Roses TBR jar project, where I read a book that was involved in a romance series, and I liked it so much that I want to go back and try and read more from the series. So first up being Misfits of Mayfair by Bethany Bennett. I really enjoyed the third book in this one, Dukes Do It Better, and we actually got to see some of the couples from the prior two books. Plus, I really enjoyed the fact that this author didn't follow the usual romance book structure. They actually ended up having a breakup about halfway through the book rather than at the third act conflict, and the third act conflict was actually external and brought them back together. So I'm interested to see if Bennett does something similar or even something more different for her other two books in the series, and absolutely I'm going to be checking them out. I also read the second book and the one-on-one series by Jamie Wesley and really enjoyed it. Characters in this one just had phenomenal chemistry. There was great banter, and oh my gosh, the steam was phenomenal. Of course, I want to get more of that. The little bit we saw of the heroine for the first book also intrigued me, so I want to see more of her. Then there is the Bachelor series by Cecilia Renee, and I can't freaking wait. I gushed with the author over the third book, and she did tell me the third is the one with the highest amount of angst and also the most amount of spice. So I need to adjust my expectations a little bit for the two prior books, but she also made me very excited for the fourth, which has not been published yet. But oh my gosh, I can't freaking wait. And on a similar vein is the Milagro Street series by Angelina M. Lopez. I do own the first book and I'm very excited to get to it. I really liked what she did with the second, and I know a third is coming out. It's gonna be a little bit of a wait on that one, unfortunately, but I can't wait to see more of her work because her steam was delicious. Then there's a recent addition to this list, Saga by Brian K. Vaughan. I wasn't really expecting to start this series this year, but it came up for my Spookopoly in October. Had to start into it. It's a sci-fi graphic novel series, so hopefully these will be fast reads, and I did already see that they are available at my library. I'm gonna do my best to try and work on those next year. We'll see how that goes. There's also Stephen Fry's Great Mythology. The fourth book, The Odyssey, recently came out, and I will be reading it. I promise I'm going to. I have to get the audiobook. You have to read these books audibly. Stephen Fry does such phenomenal voice work. You're really doing yourself a disservice if you don't listen to the audiobooks. He just presents the stories so well, even more entertaining and educational. It's like the best college lecture you've ever listened to. There's also the Star Wars High Republic series, which recently had another installment come out. I've been doing my Star Wars canon project throughout this year, and trust me, it will be continuing next year. But I do think I'm gonna wait until about 4 books have been released in the High Republic series before I decide to continue and kind of like batch update this one. So I've got a little bit of waiting to do, but I do know at the very least the next 4 books have already been announced. So that is it for the series of series update for 2024. Like I said, I've had a lot of updates on the series tracker this year. More additions than I would like, less progress on some than I would like. I'm gonna make this another priority for next year. I'm gonna do my best. My other priority next year is definitely gonna be books that I own, and unfortunately I own a lot of first books in a series. I don't own a lot of sequels, because usually I don't want to buy the sequel until I know that I enjoy the first book. It's a bit of a struggle, but one way or another, hopefully I'll work down these numbers a little bit, maybe a little bit. We'll see. On that note, that is it for today, y'all. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I'm on my socials, as well as a few ways you can support me linked in the description. I come out videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!